Good morning, everyone. I'm Judith Sheff, the Associate Vice President for Technology and Enterprise Development at the New Jersey Innovation Institute. I'm the Principal Investigator, along with Michael Ehrlich from the School of Management, on the JPMorgan Chase Health IT Cluster Initiative that you're going to hear a little bit about later this morning. At this point, I'd like to invite the President of NJIT, President Bloom, to make some welcoming remarks.
Thank you. I thank you for braving the weather, the roads. I hope our curbs, sidewalks are inviting enough to cross over. So I know we'll have some late attendees. So first of all, good morning and welcome to the JPMorgan Chase NJIT Small Business Cluster Initiative launch. We've been doing this for a while, but it's an appropriate time to launch. Business initiatives have been in the DNA of NJIT since its founding in 1881. In fact, it was founded here in downtown Newark by industrialists who wanted to make sure that they had the future workforce for their business and industry that was flourishing here in the city at that time. Today, our state and our city are emerging as science and technology hubs. New Jersey is known for being the most densely populated per capita state in the nation for scientists and engineers. And we take a particular pride here at NJIT for saying that at least one quarter of those engineers in the state of New Jersey are alums of this university and are true to its founding as Newark's technical school. Today we also represent the largest engineering school in the greater metropolitan region, the largest school of architecture and design, again, in the greater New Jersey, New York metropolitan region. And our university is on a growth trajectory. Today we have over 10,500 students. We've grown our enrollment over the past 5 years by 20%. And we're doing it in response to industry demands. Our students, I think it was earlier this week, we had a recruiting fair on campus. There's no space left for companies to recruit during our fairs. Over the past 2 or 3 years now, we've been turning away 20 to 30 companies from these fairs. The demand for these STEM students that we have the good fortune to educate far exceeds the supply. We've also increased our revenue by 40% annually for the past 5 years. It's a pretty good record in these current times of coming out of the economic recession. We have $1 billion in capital assets on this campus, and over the next 3 years, we'll be investing another $300 million on capital renewal and new buildings. Our research has grown over $100 million, and we are a nationally ranked, per annum that is, we are a nationally ranked research university. Along with the mission of education, workforce development, and research, NJIT about 35 years ago took on the mission of economic development. Today we are home to the oldest and largest technology incubator. Going west here, we've got about 100,000 square feet, some 95 companies employing over 800 people, and that's again developing the next processes, concepts, ideas in fields of technology. Our newest effort, launched this past spring, is the New Jersey Innovation Institute. And we launched this to partner more directly with business and industry for the purpose of economic development, commercialization of technology, forming the kind of partnerships that we're here to talk about today with JPMorgan Chase and their Small Business Forward program, a very, very innovative and creative program. We're fortunate to be one of the 11 national sites for their Business Forward program. They know what you all know, that the nation's GDP is growing because of small business. 60% of the new jobs during this economic recovery, small business. Almost 50% of the GDP in this country is small business. So JPMorgan Chase, similar to many of you here today, and comparable to what NJIT, we see a role in helping small business develop. So we're building here on a very successful grant that NJIT received in 2010. It was a $23 million grant. Don Sebastian's here with us, was the PI of it. And that was for the purpose of ensuring that IT is well integrated into healthcare. So when you and I go to the physician, and then we move on to the specialist, and we may well move on to a hospital or some aftercare center, we can have one electronic record that follows us. Think about it. I'm sure many of us are here at the age where we either require to see a physician on an annual basis, and now when you go there, that old manila folder with their handwritten notes is gone. The trustees require me to have an annual physical here at NJIT. They don't pay for it. And about a week ago, I took the physical 3-4 weeks ago. A week ago, I've got this very lovely printout, and I got it on my smartphone. About a day or two later, I also received a hard copy in the mail. But think about that. I could send that record to any other place if I choose to. That gives a very, very detailed history of my health. So the JPMorgan Chase funding builds on the health IT cluster that we started here at NJIT. It's located in that Economic Development Center. It's an incubator company, and it's part of the New Jersey Innovation Institute. So we are piloting their IT Entrepreneurial Connection Program for the purpose of assisting growth stage entrepreneurs, all with revenues. These are companies that have already achieved, you are here in the audience, with $250,000. And we're asking them, and we're inviting others, to expand their IT health-focused businesses. To date, 25 companies are participating, and as I said, others of you are invited to participate in the cluster activities. And these cluster activities, it's networking, critically important. NJIT, when it began at EDC, learned early lessons about ecosystems and cluster development, and now, as we know, they're throughout our organizations and our economy. So it's networking, it's structured learning activities, strategic connections, marketing resources, one-on-one advisement about the growth of their companies. So I want to particularly thank our JPMorgan Chase partners, Michael Haberman and Mark Sheridan, and their colleagues who are here with us today. I thank my colleagues, Don Sebastian, Judith Sheff, and Michael Ehrlich. And I also want to thank the contingency representing our mayor here from the city of Newark. Having had the opportunity to spend a good amount of time with our mayor, he certainly understands the role of universities and business development here in our city. And finally, I want to thank you, the leaders of the small businesses, and those of you who are participating in this initiative, and I wish you Godspeed. Take care.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Wow, that was weak. Good morning. Come on. Everyone's awake here. All right. So I have some prepared remarks to make, which I'm delighted to do. But first, let me just say how impressive the statistics are that President Bloom, you quoted about this fine school. I'm learning a lot more day by day, and it's just amazing all the different facts and figures you shared with us. And in fact, let me share another statistic with you that came out at 8:31 this morning, and that's the monthly payroll report. Anyone want to take a guess other than my JPMorgan colleagues? Rick Calfine, you're excluded. 290. Anything else? Very good. 295. 295,000 jobs created in the month of February. And guess what? Small businesses are a critical part of that. And as we sit here today, and we'll talk a lot about clusters, and I'm, trust me, learning a lot more about clusters and their implications and the concepts and how they work. We'll take that 295 and continue to drive it upwards. So that's all very exciting. So it's my pleasure to be with you all here in Newark today. Thank you to President Bloom and the entire NJIT, NJII community for hosting our gathering today in this beautiful room. Thank you for all the salt you put on the walks. It was really well done. I didn't slip. I also want to acknowledge Deputy Mayor Adolfo Wilson and all the other leaders of the community who are with us here today. We are grateful for your collective commitment to growing the city's economy. We're here today because of our shared belief in the power of small business and the American entrepreneur. In my role as a region head at JPMorgan Chase, I'm privileged to work with colleagues who serve American businesses, owners, and entrepreneurs. And I have a great job. We all have great jobs at JPMorgan Chase because every day we get to help people and their businesses and grow their businesses and become more successful. At JPMorgan Chase, we also have a great vantage point to see the innovations and creativity of American enterprise, which fuels our continued strength and future global competitiveness. We heard from President Bloom, small business in the United States is big. It's very big. In fact, there are more than 28 million small businesses in the United States. Small and emerging companies are often where innovation and ideas happen. Right here in Newark, entrepreneurs are tackling some of the world's biggest problems, creating innovative products and helping other businesses function more efficiently and effectively. At JPMorgan Chase, we understand that starting a business can be hard, really hard, lonely work. Entrepreneurs are remarkably talented people, dedicated people, but the odds against their success sometimes seem overwhelming. Small Business Forward is a $30 million 5-year commitment designed to help connect entrepreneurs to resources they need to succeed and grow, including management training, affordable facilities, and networks that help them access investment or new markets for their products. These connections can jumpstart a small business's growth and dramatically increase their odds of success. And that growth benefits the broader community, extending far beyond the entrepreneurs themselves. And that's the really exciting part. At JPMorgan Chase, we serve more than 4 million American small businesses. And we are seeing that lending to small businesses clients is on the rise, almost up 50% year over year. And I think that, we see some of that through the statistics I quoted earlier, jobs growth, directly correlated. This is a sign that our clients are feeling more confident about the economy, more confident about their businesses. The New Jersey Innovation Institute is a natural fit with Small Business Forward because we are supporting organizations that focus on strengthening clusters, companies in the same industry and geography that draw a competitive advantage from their proximity. Research demonstrates that this strategy is quickly becoming a critical, important economic development tool for top metro areas around the country and around the world. In fact, our commissioned research shows that over an 8-year period, metro areas with high-performing clusters produce 3 times the value of product and services than other businesses in those markets. And that's real economic value. Small Business Forward's goals are really quite simple. Generate new employment opportunities, create wealth, and help strengthen local economies. We are pleased today to announce that through our Small Business Forward program, we've donated $300,000 to NJII to fund their initiative to serve growth stage entrepreneurs in the health IT sector. Thank you. Thank you. So working with NJIT's Enterprise Development Center, NJII provides health IT entrepreneurs with the following: cluster-focused networking efforts that link them with strategic partners, suppliers, and facilities that can accelerate their growth. Second, intensive systematic training, coaching, mentoring, and direct interaction with prospective customers. And third, a structured learning program consisting of group classes and peer support activities The curriculum also includes market analysis, customer feedback analysis, financial and administrative management. At JPMorgan Chase, we serve more than 4 million American small businesses, as I mentioned. We bank more than 137,000 small businesses here in the state of New Jersey and extend over $400 million in credit to small businesses across the state last year. Beyond banking, we often find ourselves providing support to small business clients through connections to other resources and networks to help them grow. Some of these networks are represented here today. We are grateful for the partnerships we enjoy with city and state agencies, as well as business organizations and advocacy groups. You all do an excellent job of advancing the cause and importance of small businesses in this region. At the end of the day, we can agree that by supporting small business success, we are supporting the communities where they do business and where we do businesses, where we live, and where we raise our families. To learn more about our firm's efforts to support small business, of course, we've prepared a video. You're not going to get away with not seeing a video, so we've got a short video, which we would like to roll now.
Small businesses are a major driver of our economy, and regardless of what stage they are in their development, they continue to need a lot of the same thing. They need access to facilities, intellectual capital. They could need legal help. They could need accounting resources. So when you bring a lot of like-minded people together in the same industry, the more successful each one of them are, the more successful the group is or the cluster. Clusters are a grouping of small companies operating in a geographically defined area, all in principally the same industry. Clusters benefit from working with nonprofits, and the nonprofit plays the role of intermediary. They understand the industry, they understand the geography, they understand the communities, and therefore they're in the best position to determine how to best benefit the companies, the concept, and the industry as a whole. LA Cleantech's a great example of a cluster concept that has done very well. It's a group of companies in the clean technology space operating within the Los Angeles area.
Our role is to go out and find the early stage companies, the great management teams that need help, that are very young, and get them into the marketplace over a period of time. We help them with really three things. We give them plug-and-play office space. We give them coaching and mentorship and advisory services and education. And three, we connect them to people that can help. We have an ecosystem of world-class research universities, government institutions, corporate partners, capital, and we connect them to the people that they need when they need it.
We are Isidore Electronics Recycling, a social enterprise. We are a full-service electronics recycling and repair company here in Los Angeles. We are where you can bring that pile of computers or phones or wires or the stuff you don't know what to do with. We will make sure that it's responsibly dealt with. This cluster is a collection of advisors and then a collection of incubated companies. To be able to all share the resources, whether that be the fax machine or advisors who can help you raise money, it's amazing. Lacey's really been able to fill in the gaps. They have been unbelievable, helping me build a financial model and finding the appropriate sort of attorney to deal with a certain issue, or I can go to them and say, I need blank, and they'll help me find it.
We are a very unique organization. We are a public-private partnership that is nonprofit, yet we have very strong connections to the city of Los Angeles, the county of Los Angeles.
You really are taking on an extended team, and it's invaluable for a small company to have an extension of your team like that.
We are going to build a new campus right down the street, about a block from here. And that new campus is going to be a 60,000 square foot campus that's going to have wet labs, dry labs, R&D facilities, a training center so that we eliminate the skills gap between creation of jobs and training for jobs in the future.
Another example of a very successful cluster concept is the Detroit Eastern Market.
This venerable market attracts 30 to 40,000 people each Saturday, and we can actually put food businesses that are in their early stages in front of that kind of market. We provide access to low-cost production space now with help from our friends like at JPMorgan Chase. We provide access to expertise through partnerships with Michigan State University Product Center and Extension. And through a number of means, we're looking at providing low-cost access to capital to really allow food companies to get started and grow.
JPMorgan Chase is very pleased to help support the cluster concept. Our 5-year, $30 million commitment in a variety of industries in the following cities: Chicago, Detroit, Los Angeles, Milwaukee, Newark, New Orleans, San Francisco, Seattle, St. Louis, and Kansas City. Coming in 2015, this program will also expand internationally.
We're building a cluster that we think will pay out 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now. So for us here, JPMorgan Chase has been a game changer.
It's all about accelerating growth today to set up and look forward and set companies up for success tomorrow.
It's a really good feeling of we're all in this together, and it's an incredibly valuable thing.
Great. Hope you all enjoyed that video. All right, so continuing with the program, I'm delighted to make the introduction to Deputy Mayor Adolfo Wilson. Unfortunately, Mayor Baraka was called away on other business, but he sent an extremely capable surrogate who was uniquely suited to discuss today's topic. It's my honor to introduce Bio Adolfo Wilson, the Deputy Mayor of Newark for Economic and Housing Development. I'm going to give you a little background. The Deputy Mayor was born in nearby Patterson. He served in the U.S. Army and then came here to Newark to study at Rutgers, so he has a long history with this city. And you're probably going to correct me where I may go wrong here, right? In 2003, Deputy Mayor Adolfo Wilson co-founded the Lincoln Park Coast Cultural District, a nationally recognized placemaking organization that is creating a sustainable cultural district here in Newark. Under his leadership, more than $40 million worth of commercial and residential units were built in Lincoln Park. Mayor Baraka appointed Deputy Mayor Adolfo Wilson to create economic opportunity for Newark residents and enhance the vibrancy of the city. Newark's Department of Economic and Housing Development is working to position Newark to take advantage of its unique assets, including its strategic location and its concentration of businesses and major universities. We'll hear more about how Newark is building on these assets from the Deputy Mayor and from our distinguished panel later in the program. But please join me in welcoming Deputy Mayor Adolfo Wilson.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to provide you with a welcome from the Honorable Mayor Raz J. Baraka, the Newark City Council, the Department of Economic and Housing Development, to Newark. It's really great to see so many people here on a snowy Friday morning. Even more so, the generosity of JPMorgan Chase and their investment in this program is really appreciated, to make this sort of investment in Newark, to prioritize Newark along cities like Kansas City, Detroit, lets you know that the economy and importance of Newark is growing nationally, and so we appreciate that recognition. I'm also really sort of excited about the work that's happening here at NJIT. Through the leadership of Dr. Bloom and the faculty, it's just really impressive, just sort of the intelligence that's here and the direction that the school is moving in. It's needed here in Newark. We have obviously multiple institutions, but there's just a particular brilliance around NJIT that you see, and it's growing tremendously. I went to school across the street. I started 25 years ago, and so graduated probably 1992, and it just looked a lot different. This whole environment, there was a few buildings over here. There were no trees across the street. It was just all cement. And just to see how this neighborhood has grown in the last 25 years is amazing. And so in addition to the work on campus and programs like this, just the investment in Newark is a lot. One one of the things that's important about this project and this program that I'm excited about is that Newark has this huge big city infrastructure. We have a port, we have an airport, we have these highways, we have a train station that has an Amtrak stop in addition to New Jersey Transit and PATH. We have an arts infrastructure, the education infrastructure with 50,000 plus students, and then we have health industry. And so this big city infrastructure is here, which is really servicing northern New Jersey. But in terms of our local demographics, the 300,000 people live in the city. It's sort of a small city infrastructure. And for the most part, those people, a lot of those people shop outside the city for critical needs, whether it's food, clothing, and other services. A lot of people here, I remember my oldest daughter was born in St. Michael's Hospital around the corner, but I remember people like, oh, why don't you go to St. Barnabas? I'm like, well, the hospital's down the street, you know? And so and it was just something that people were, and that daughter will be 16 this year, and I remember back then people just really, a lot of people went out to St. Barnabas to have children. And so they weren't even utilizing the infrastructure that's here. That's where that opportunity exists. The opportunity exists for small businesses to take advantage of the fact that for decades, people have been disinvesting in the city. But the demographics are here, whether it's all the people who work here, all the people who live here, the services are needed here. And I think that even when I was working in Lincoln Park, it was very clear that where the opportunity existed was in servicing the local population. So what's exciting about this program in the health cluster is that I can see that those businesses who make that investment now have the potential to grow substantially because the local demographic is not being served fully. And if they were able to sort of make that connection, their businesses will grow. All across the country, you look at cities like Asheville and Seattle and some of the sort of smaller demographic cities, you see that the small businesses are taking advantage of the fact they're the ones who are bringing the economy back. It's sort of the local living economies that are really helping these cities to prosper. It's the diversity that takes place in these businesses. It's their knowledge of the local population that really make them unique and make them have the opportunity to survive and to thrive. That's what's needed here. And NJIT's investment in that allows us to build that foundation, to build that pipeline of entrepreneurs or small businesses that will help the city grow. The infrastructure's here, the people are here. But the entrepreneur spirit and the small business spirit is what needs to help to catalyze and to help the economy and people realize what's here. And also, it's where they could make a lot of money. They can make a lot of money servicing the local population. So in that regard, I really want us to think about how we get more people involved in this. Our whole mantra since we've been in our short 8 months of being in office is that we're trying to employ as many Newarkers as possible throughout, whether it's tax abatements or programs. Procurement, everything we do, we're focused on hiring local residents. Same thing needs to happen in terms of business development. How do we encourage more Newarkers to start small businesses, to service their population, to service their communities? Because without that, the unemployment numbers, even though they're going down tremendously, will flatline, and we won't be able to get we'll be able to change the neighborhoods in the way that we need to change them. And so these type of programs need to make sure they're expanded to include Newark residents, but also for all of us who are employing people, we need to figure out how to employ Newark residents and how to encourage Newark residents and also to start small businesses, and also to how to have businesses that are outside of Newark who are providing us services, how to locate them and help them relocate them into the city of Newark. We're providing support. We are open for business. So in terms of providing those businesses and individuals resources and expertise, we will be there for them. But it's how we work together, which is sort of the basis of the video, which was so impressive and beautiful to see, that it's the collection, it's our sort of collective effort across government, the private sector, education, philanthropic, that's going to see the city prosper. And we're there. You know, we're on that doorstep. But we need this sort of push, and that push is going to happen through a collective, our collective will and determination. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Thank you for the leadership, and thank you for the partnership. And I couldn't agree more with your closing remarks, Deputy Mayor. Everyone's got to be in the game here for this to work, and having that partnership between education, businesses, and local government is critical. I think everybody gets that, and it's going to be really exciting to push through that door as quickly as we can. So today we're discussing how to help Newark grow its health IT sector, and to do so in a way that creates the jobs we need to build broad, inclusive economic activity. To lead the discussion, I'd like to welcome to the stage Dr. Donald Sebastian, President of the New Jersey Innovation Institute, and he is uniquely qualified to address this important topic, along with our distinguished panelists, who I'd like to welcome.
Thank you, and thank you all for braving the traffic of New Jersey to join us this morning. Thank you, JPMorgan Chase, for including us in the select group of Small Business Forward programs. We're here today to talk about clusters, and to some extent it is deemed to be a modern economic development concept, but in another extent it really is an age-old concept. You look back in history and you can certainly see that certain areas became expert and known for something, typically in the trades, and that allowed them to have a very different economic prosperity than their competitors. And we can see in more modern times, U.S. times, that in fact New Jersey was created to be a cluster. It was created by the Founding Fathers to be the manufacturing center of the United States, and to take advantage of the water power in the Great Falls and Patterson, from which grew a number of important industries. And then not long thereafter, it would seem, although actually 100 years later, it really became the hub of almost every major industry in the United States. Electric light and power through Edison, the birth of our petrochemical industry with Standard Oil here in New Jersey, the growth of our pharmaceutical industry, Cheek and Jow with petrochemicals, broadcast recordings, movies, and broadcast telecommunications with Ma Bell, and the healthcare industry with J&J and Becton Dickinson, amongst others. All things that were rooted here, very often, in fact, the names of the founders remaining in our industrial lexicon today. But we've seen that in many instances, those anchor industries are starting to show their age. And across the country for at least the last 25, perhaps even 30 years, we've been asking the question, what's next? You know, and the idea of clusters became prominent back in the 90s when Michael Porter of Harvard was, I think, commissioned by the Council of Competitiveness, who really identified this powerful idea that you could pull together in regions, not just birds of a feather, but birds of a feather that created something of value to be exported to other regions, and that so-called traded clusters were a dominant model for building the economy. And it was both good news and bad news, because it bred, I think, a period in which everybody wanted to be the next valley. Silicon Valley was the only model we could see in our lifetime of something like that happening in the United States, and so everyone felt it was important to capture the next wave. I want to be Rubber Valley, I want to be Polymer Valley, I want to be Nano Valley. Even before we knew what the nano industry could or might be, everybody wanted to take claim to that. And I think we've learned from that. Formal studies like that of Richard Lester at MIT identified many ways in which you could grow a regional economy, not just by capturing the next wave and creating a new disruptive technology-based industry. You could simply import somebody else's. You could be receptive. Taipei in China capturing the consumer electronics industry decades ago is an example where they just made themselves the right place for these industries to root and grow. And certainly we've seen again the growth in mainland China, People's Republic, of industries that have rooted there without the inherent seed for their creation being there. You could diversify existing industries as Akron did when the consumer tire business disappeared from the United States, and they took their expertise in advanced elastomers processing and diversified into high value-added products and services. In other areas that have simply modernized their products by the infusion of information technology, advanced process controls are other examples of models to be followed. So that's a good start to know that there's more than one way to skin a cat, but then the question is, how do we get there? How do you figure out where you might go, and what are the techniques that you can use to build and grow? And we will be fortunate to have on the panel today Ed Morrison, who can talk about some of the strategies that you can use to figure out what could we do together, what should we do together, and what will we do together, and keep refining that. The New Jersey Innovation Institute is deeply vested in the concept of clusters. We have formed ourselves around 5 market verticals that are core to the economy of New Jersey. They've been self-proclaimed as target key priority industrial sectors in the state's Economic Master Development Plan. Biopharmaceutical, who could deny that it's probably the one shining beacon of a core industry that still remains strong and dense here in New Jersey. Defense and Homeland Security, the broad area of civil infrastructure, the utilities, the building construction trades that are both an inherent industry and a generator of local jobs, financial services, and the one that brings us here together today, the healthcare industry, where we have a core problem of solving the issue that the United States is about 3 times the cost of any of our competing civilized nations in terms of the cost of healthcare delivery with no better outcomes. We need to find new ways to bring down the cost, increase access, and increase affordability all at the same time. And while that might seem to be an impossible problem, it's not. And that's where we have this ample opportunity now for innovation, to pull together emerging companies that have new ideas, to pull together the existing players in the healthcare delivery side, and really create, to use the buzz of today, ecosystem. An ecosystem concentrated here in New Jersey, one of the most densely populated regions in the United States, and in fact in the world, to begin to solve the problems that can then propagate out and be useful elsewhere. So we have a wonderful panel here today that really represents the 3 pieces that we need to bring together if we are going to learn how to collaborate in order to compete, which is the education sector, the government sector, and the private sector. And if you will, even you could divide private sector into the not-for-profits and the for-profits. So with that, I'd like to let the panelists introduce themselves, so I'm not reading stale verbiage from a bio sheet. And then we'll go back around and have a little bit of a discussion about what it is that your company does or your entity does, and then we'll start to riff from there, if you will. So if I can start from the far end, Adam Turinas is the Chief Executive Officer of Practice Unite. Adam, could you tell us a little more about yourself and your company?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Oh, thank you. Thanks very much. A bit of collaboration going on right here, exactly. Clustering real time. $1 in $6 spent in the United States is spent on healthcare. If US healthcare was an economy, it would be the size of France. And this is an economy that's going through a massive disruption. It's probably the single biggest disruption, economic disruption we've ever seen. Huge, huge transformation. And any shift of that type of an economy, communication and collaboration is critical. You have to be able, people need to be able to reach each other, communicate effectively. And what's going on in healthcare is a shift from being hospital-centric, where you had small groups of physicians working together, to a shift towards the home, where now the focus is on the patient and keeping the patient healthy at home. Communication collaboration is a critical part of it. The answer is this little miracle, the smartphone. This is the most ingenious piece of technology in my lifetime. And I've been involved in technology for my entire professional career. 90% of physicians carry one of these. 90% of patients want to be communicated through one of these. So Practice Unite is a 3-year-old startup company. We're a mobile health solutions company. We have a platform, a technology platform, to create multiple applications, mobile health applications. So we deliver applications for clinicians, doctors and nurses, applications for patients, and now we've recently launched an application for home care aides. And we're working with 15 customers. Most of them are in New Jersey. So for example, our franchise customer, marquee customer, is Jersey City Medical Center, part of Barnabas Health. They essentially were the spark that started this. My partner, Stuart Hochran, is a 30-year practicing physician in New Jersey. My other partner, Ed Guy, is a 30-year software developer who happened to be based at the EDC. When we started the company out of our bedrooms. When we got serious about it, we knew that we needed a place to actually build the company. And the EDC was the perfect place to do that. First of all, great offices, very affordable, which is obviously key for any startup, very convenient, and we also have access to these incredible students. I was doing a little count today, and I think around 50% of our employees and staff are either NJIT graduates or currently NJIT students, and they're extraordinarily talented, and we feel really blessed to be here and have access to this talent pool. We've now got to the point where we've reached a critical mass where we feel that we can expand nationally, and we're doing that in partnership. We're doing that in partnership with an organization that's actually based in South Jersey and Philadelphia, but it's an organization that allows us to get national distribution. What's been critical for us was to be able to build the presence, build our reputation locally. So in the last 2 years, we have, I think, over 10,000 clinicians in New Jersey and New York on our applications. Extremely high satisfaction, and that's created for us a platform to expand nationally. I think I'll now hand over to Otis. Otherwise,
Yes.
I'll just keep going forever.
Right, right. Well, trust me, you're not done, but we'll get back to you. So our next in line, Otis Raleigh, is the president and CEO of the Newark Community Economic Development Corporation, Newark CEDC, and he brings over 16 years of community and economic development experience to that position. Otis, tell us a little bit about your organization and some of the things you're trying to do here to grow the Newark economy.
Sure. First of all, good morning. It is difficult to follow someone with a British accent because I feel like I don't sound as proper. But I will try my best. So thank you, Mark and President Bloom and Don. This is an exciting opportunity, an awesome time and place to be in the city of Newark. And to be on the NJIT campus. There is a heck of a lot going on here that is exciting, not just because I'm here, but exciting because of the role that you're playing in helping to transform the city, the state, and the region. So thank you, all three of you, for the role that you're playing in that. I wanted to very briefly introduce to many of you Newark CEDC. So the Newark Community Economic Development Corporation was founded in 2007 and renamed in 2014. And our role is to serve as the economic kind of catalyst and engine for the city of Newark. Deputy Mayor Adolfo Wilson is in charge of the Department of Economic and Housing Development for the city of Newark, and we do much of the E and EHD work. Our sole client is the city of Newark, and moving forward the economic initiatives for this great city. It's interesting because the cluster work that has been going on since the 90s and very actively in Newark since 2004, when the Newark Alliance helped to convene a number of players, NJIT included, for kind of Newark opportunities, has been pushing a perspective that Newark City government and Newark CEDC recognizes as crucial to the economic health and well-being for the city of Newark. We recognize that there are 4 primary kind of clusters, health services being one of them, And we have tried to leverage our resources, energy, effort towards advancing that cluster work. There's an African proverb that says, it takes a village to raise a child. We doing a bit of a paraphrase of it, that it takes a cluster to transform an economy. Right? Michael Porter was right. The city of Newark has gotten that. I think we all recognize that if we are going to do this work and do it exceptionally well, we have to leverage our resources to do that. So how is Newark CEDC trying to do that? First and foremost, in how we organize the work of the Economic Development Corporation, we have individuals who are hired to focus solely on each of the clusters. And so literally, and I started on February 16th in this role, but literally we are bringing on board senior VPs for each of the clusters, one of which includes health services. The health IT piece of the work, though, actually hits on two of our clusters, both health services as well as education and kind of technology and knowledge-based cluster. So, but we have, so we are dedicating our human resources and time and energy around advancing this goal. Second is around the area of fundraising. And so working with philanthropic organizations as well as corporations to try to attract additional resources to invest because we think there is no greater return on investment, and I'm happy JPMorgan Chase agrees with that, than investing in small businesses and in the Newark economy. If you want to transform New Jersey and if you want to heal our great nation, there's no better investment than in this greatest city. And so that's where we are trying to do our work as well. The third piece is around coordination and collaboration with the entities such as NJIT and others that are providing and doing this work, providing resources to do this work throughout the city so that we don't have to necessarily recreate the wheel and try to do things that are already being done, but instead to invest in, help to seek additional investment in, and to support and buttress the work of others, such as the Innovation Institute. And then finally, it is really working within the Newark kind of infrastructure, both within city government as well as our technology infrastructure, to really try to leverage it to support health services and health technology. We have an infrastructure, particularly the dark fiber infrastructure in the city of Newark, that once harnessed and leveraged appropriately, we think can really help to make Newark the place to be, both for health technology as well as other information technology services that could come to Newark and prosper here and help to grow our local economy.
Thank you, Otis. Our next panelist is Ed Morrison, a strategic advisor to the Purdue Center for Regional Economic Development. We've been fortunate enough to have Ed here with us all week in providing specialized training for our folks in a process that he has named strategic doing. I'm not going to even attempt to try to describe it. I'm sure he will be able to get into that.
It's part of your
Is that my
test?
Yeah, well, I won't get my diploma today. I've come to know Ed over the last year through my colleague, Tim Franklin, who's here in the audience, Vice President and COO of the New Jersey Innovation Institute, and the two of them have been colleagues for some time before that in bringing fresh ideas into how one goes about identifying and then growing regional clusters. So he's really dead on topic in terms of what we'd like to talk about today. Ed, tell us a little bit about the center and what you do.
The Center for Regional Development at Purdue was formed about 10 years ago when I and a small group of colleagues came together to start looking at how do regions transform and what is the role of the university in that transformation. Because if we look at how regions do transform, they transform through open collaboration, and they're anchored usually by colleges and universities. So the question comes, how do we replicate and scale that? How do we essentially build these collaborative networks? So that challenge at Purdue has led to fostering strategic doing, which is a new strategy discipline. We've all grown up with strategic planning. Strategic planning doesn't really work very well in open, loosely connected networks. So the challenge is, how do we develop our strategic thinking and learning by doing in an agile way. Colleges and universities can play a central role in doing that and thereby supporting and anchoring these clusters. We heard from Adam what the resources of the college and university can provide. Just a brief recap. Brainpower, access to students. Innovation and entrepreneurship, support. How do you build your business? The connectivity to networks. Third, quality places, a spot, a place where these businesses can grow. But most important in many ways is creating this new narrative, creating the narrative of what's next rather than what's past. Most regions that get stuck are stuck in a narrative of the past. So, for example, in Milwaukee's case, with the case of the water cluster, coming in, working with the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, building a new narrative around the opportunities of a freshwater technology cluster of companies that grew up over a long period of time. Why? Because Milwaukee was the center of brewing and processed paper. So they had a lot of freshwater technology companies, but they had to figure out and come up with new ways of linking and leveraging their assets. Linking and leveraging assets, finding new ways of doing things, continuous experimentation, that's what strategic doing is all about. It's teaching this new set of disciplines and using a discipline process to form collaborations quickly, move us toward measurable outcomes, and enable us to make adjustments as we learn by doing. The Purdue Center also focuses on building new platforms that enable us to gain access to information that is locked away in large-scale servers, big data, if you will. So we now have an interactive platform that enables us to identify clusters very quickly. Start those new conversations, because the regions that start to move in a new way go through a set of pretty identifiable horizons. The first horizon is to ask the question, change the conversation, what could we do? The second horizon comes when we start to think about our networks in different ways, looking at the assets that are across those organizational and political boundaries, the assets, and starting to understand that we can link and leverage those assets. The third real focus of a transforming region comes when the regional leadership understands that these networks can be formed and designed intentionally, that they can be done strategically. It's not haphazard. It doesn't have to be just a group of people coming together. So we can actually design these networks. And then what the launch of the cluster, and this is where we spend a lot of our time, focusing on how do you launch Pathfinder projects, projects that create shared value very quickly so that it reinforces the cycle of collaboration. People start realizing quickly how they can do that. So how do you do that on a large scale? We can do it one-to-one, but how do you scale trust? How do you scale collaboration? Those are the questions we've been focused on at Purdue.
Thank you, Ed. So if you didn't get, in a sense, his efforts really led to the formation of a cluster that's one of the other Small Business Forward initiatives. And what I didn't tell you, so now that's a clever segue, is that Adam is also someone who's been participating in our Small Business Forward effort. So he's part of he and his company are part of the first cohort, in a sense the boot camp version. Just because he's finished it doesn't mean we're done with them. We will continue to bring the groups back together and ask the questions. What could we do together? What should we do together? What will we do together? But Adam, tell us a little about your experience so far with the Small Business Forward initiative here.
Yes, so I was part of our company rather, was part of the first cohort of this initiative. It was a great experience. It's a combination of, I think we'd describe experience as a combination of teaching, stretching your thinking a bit, and networking. So teaching, Michael Ehrlich over there has led us on some really interesting thinking about small business, lean startup, using the lean startup philosophy, which is kind of the vogue, but for right reasons on how you start a business. It was great in terms of stretching our thinking. You know, we were sort of at a stage where we thought we kind of had it all figured out, and it got us to challenge our thinking. And then the third part of it was we were doing this in participation with 8 other entrepreneurs, and we were able to share ideas and network, and I think out of that, some really interesting new opportunities have come out of it. So it's been a great experience. My view on it is that it was step one of the journey. Looking forward to the additional, how this follows on, and I believe that part of that will be expanding that networking out to other organizations and into other potential opportunities.
So we all know about incubation. You heard from Joel that we've been in the business for some time and gotten to be fairly successful at it. I think those who have been at it for a while recognize that there's more to life and that one has to grow the companies that have been incubated and grow them locally. It's not so great to start them and have them fly the coop. But, and there's a dimension to this activity, which is to ensure the success and health of the companies that we're assisting. But there's another dimension I'd like to ask you a bit about, Adam, which is the connectivity, if you will, the supply chain sort of models that could work in the healthcare IT delivery service. Too often, I see in various applications of IT, everyone wants to be the next Bill Gates and the next Microsoft, right? So the only answer is that I'm going to dominate and own the entire market and provide all the products, and that's very often a pretty large leap, and it's often a disservice to the product space because no one company has all the things necessary to satisfy all these things. So to the extent that we can start to build a culture of collaborating, both in a supply chain model and even collaborating in peer rivals to drive the technology base or platforms forward, I think that would be one of my aspirations. But I'm curious, your reaction to the sort of partnerships that you've formed, not just out of Small Business Forward, but the ones that you see in value, because that can help guide us to know where we should be focusing.
Yeah, it's a really great question. If I use another African proverb, the proverb is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Something which I've heard at every startup conference and panel I go to, somebody says it, so I thought I'd be the one who said that one. So it's absolutely critical, and particularly in healthcare IT. And it's quite interesting because, healthcare IT is traditionally been dominated by the big EHR companies like Epic and Cerner that do great work and they have great products, but have tended to be kind of closed and competitive with each other. What's happening is they're being forced to open up and to form partnerships and collaborations. And we're starting to actually collaborate ourselves with companies like that. Partnerships and collaboration has been a critical part of our short-term growth and is certainly a very important part of our long-term strategy. If you learn one thing in being a startup, which is you can only do so many things and just focus on doing a few things really, really well. We know that to grow, we need to grow a sales force. We also need to grow a delivery capability. For us to grow that ourselves is a real challenge without taking on significant investment and significant risk. So what we're doing is we're actually doing it in partnership. So we have a partnership with an organization called Futura Mobility. We met them, they're based down in Philadelphia, but we actually met them at a New Jersey technology conference about 2 years ago. Initially, we thought they were a competitor. Turned out they were actually going to be our trusted partner. And they brought 2 things to us. They brought a national sales force and they brought a delivery capability. So they're kind of the first part of our expansion. We also have a number of other partnerships in technology and in services and sort of other things that are operational services that we're organizing around ourselves so that we can focus on developing great software and being totally customer driven.
Ed, I wonder if there's some things that you've learned in other sectors that we could steal shamelessly to use to drive the growth here.
Well, to Adam's point, the collaboration creates competitive advantage. And so what does that actually mean? In complex market opportunities, which is what Adam is facing, and we are all facing it to a certain extent, those trusted networks that get built enable people to spot opportunities faster, to learn faster, to align resources faster, and to move faster. And that speed itself is the competitive advantage. You can start to spot those opportunities and align resources to pursue those. So that's why the culture of collaboration, which is what Don was talking about, is so critical moving forward. But I want to drill into that notion of culture a little bit. What does that mean? How do we actually change the culture? First, we have to start to think differently. By that I mean we have to start thinking across organizational and political boundaries, finding the assets within which, in the geographic region, no matter where they're located, that could be linked and leveraged to create new value. The university plays a very important role in thinking differently because you can convene people like we are today and start asking the question, the core first question, what could we do? What could we do? So we start to learn that there are assets embedded in these networks. Second, however, and this is where a lot of regions get tripped up, is we have to behave differently. We have to behave differently. We're taught to behave and protect our boundaries and to stay behind those boundaries and to what? Make sure that nobody crosses into our boundary without us knowing about it. That's not the behavior of a high-growth entrepreneurial firm. It is the behavior, however, of a lot of our institutions, both public and private, and that behavior, in order to support Adam's type of company, has to change. The good news is that by doing differently, so not only thinking differently, but behaving differently, but by doing differently, by that I mean launching a lot of experiments about collaboration, Pathfinder projects, what we call Pathfinder projects, to figure out what works, what is creating value, and then running to those new opportunities, running to daylight, which is what every venture capitalist will tell a young firm after they've put in their money. Then now they say, great business plan, now run to daylight. And that's essentially what we have to do. We have to run to daylight.
If I may, Don, I think there's also a role that the government can play in terms of helping to transform the culture, and it is both government, nonprofit, and philanthropic sector. That if we're really serious about advancing this collaborative culture, if we're really serious about really doing cluster development, then there needs to be real financial incentives and legislative incentives that say we will no longer reward you for going it alone. Right? And so whether it is through, at the municipal level, through legislation, because I am both, it's interesting because I do this dance, not well, but we do this dance of being both on the nonprofit side and the government side. And really recognizing that on both sides, as we are providing funding, the resources that we provide in terms of grants, in terms of investing, in terms of loans, should go towards those companies that are working with others, should go towards those institutions that are collaborating in a way that help to improve the overall bottom line. And until we make that real change, right, because at the end of the day, it's going to come down to the dollar. Until we make that real change in terms of how we affect legislation and financing, that cultural change is not going to occur.
So can I jump in on that? One of the experiments that we've launched at Purdue is taking a federal grant, $15 million, and creating out of that, about half of that money went into what we called an opportunity fund. The Opportunity Fund, we went out and we said, what we are interested in collaborations that fit these criteria, that are transformative. By that we mean we want transformative collaborations that are replicable, scalable, and sustainable. Using a simple stage gate process, we were able to leverage those collaborations. We created over 60 of them, and 80% of those collaborations continued past the initial funding. Why? Because we created value that somebody was willing to pay for. So part of this is a new discipline. Otis is exactly right, a new discipline on how we invest our public funds. The old way of doing this, which is a narrow program funding model, doesn't work very well. It doesn't get us very far. However, if we can start thinking about the nature of our economy being a market economy, where companies are providing public value and private profit drives our economy forward. But around that market economy is a civic economy, and that's what Otis is talking about. These are activities and investments that are publicly valuable, but not privately profitable. So it's government, it's nonprofits, it's education. And aligning the civic economy to support the market economy is what cluster development is all about.
This is perfect. Thank you. You anticipated my question and went beyond, and then you came right on the back end. And along that theme, right, of identifying what is the business driver for all of these changes, there's one element of regional clustering that I think still needs to be asked, recognizing we don't have that much time left on the agenda. And that's the actual value of co-location. There's been much made, certainly over the last 10 years, that IT has eliminated the need to be proximate, that we can Skype and now we can FaceTime and we can do all the things we have to do with people anywhere in the world, and so there really is no reason to have your business partners close by. I will tell you, I am not an advocate of that, just so we're on front with where I'm coming from. But I know, Adam, you've had some experience in developing, if you will, supply chain relationships, and proximity did make a difference even in the IT space. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So when we started the business, we were distributed, and when we got serious, we had to all come together. I spent a lot of time traveling, but I always want to be, when I'm back, I always come into the office, and the reason is because I need to be there making sure that people are working well together and doing their jobs. That's the sort of fundamental thing. The notion of a distributed workforce doing what we're doing just doesn't work. Equally, with kind of key partnerships, we spend probably as much time in their offices, almost as much time as we spend in our own offices, and they're doing the same. In fact, one of the project managers is going to come and work on site with us so that they understand how to deliver. That sort of notion of co-location I think is really, really critical. And if you can't do it by having everybody in the same place, then find ways to do it on a high frequency. There's nothing, these smartphones are wonderful, but there's no short circuit for for being, for face-to-face interactions.
So trust powers these networks.
Yeah.
And so it's very difficult to think about how you get the deep levels of trust that are required in a cluster without that. If you look at the work that we've done in South Carolina and Charleston with the digital cluster there, with the clean energy cluster after the NASA shuttle shutdown, aerospace cluster up in Rockford, you need a portfolio of investments. You need brain power to power these clusters. So you need an alignment with brain power. You need to convert that brain power into wealth with companies and networks that enable the companies to quickly align and pursue their growth opportunities. You need that quality connected place because those first two elements, the people and the companies, are mobile. They won't stay in a dump. If you don't have a quality connected place, you're not going to build a cluster. The fourth element that's absolutely critical is a new narrative. Where are we going as opposed to where have we been? And the city that's really struggling with this, and it's fascinating to watch, is the two competing narratives that are emerging out of Detroit. One of them looks in the rearview mirror, one of them looks out front. And it's fascinating to see the two of those narratives actually competing for what is really Detroit's future.
I want to respect everyone's Rolodex, or not Rolodex, but time calendars, because I know we promised to have you out here already. But I think it's important to give you an opportunity to talk to the panel. And so while I could stretch us out easily for another hour, and more importantly, you could talk with important things to tell the group, I would like to offer an opportunity here for questions from the audience and get you engaged in the conversation. Do we have a roving mic? Yeah. Any?
It's not a question, it's a comment. To address the importance of the support systems that we're talking about today for those early stage moving into growth stage companies, the Kaufman Foundation has come out with a statistic that 2/3 of net new jobs are the result of companies in the first 5 years of their lives. So if we're not helping the growth and the success of those companies, we're really damaging the opportunity to grow new jobs in this environment.
What we're focused on, I think, and what JPMorgan Chase is doing today is investing in a new type of civic infrastructure that is so critically important for these young firms to have. And it's anchored in a university, which is exactly where it needs to be, in my view. And it really is the type of civic investment in our civic economy that accelerates the growth of companies like Adams.
And I would say that in addition, the focus on clustering and on networks is really fundamental so that these companies can realistically grow. They can grow by partnering, not grow simply by trying to capture the other guy's cheese and make it all about the growth of one company at the expense of the others, but it's an and, not an or. And that's, I think, an exciting new element of this, to go beyond incubation and acceleration that we must do and are important, but also around nucleating partnerships and growing. We've seen it in a small way in our incubator, where companies that were really just barely past business planning were finding opportunities up and down the hallway to partner and bring new products and services to the marketplace. And I think that's an exciting opportunity here that is, again, a different model, I think, a different cultural model for U.S. business competitiveness, but an important one that's going to make us globally dominant. Yes, question. Mike's coming.
The financial community and external markets really rewarding and measuring collaboration. I mean, I don't see it in the markets today. The analysts don't necessarily reward outside the boundaries. So how do you see the financial markets and really taking a look at that and measuring on that?
Well, in my view, the financial markets are going to see that, and again, JPMorgan Chase is a good example of a leading edge, where you're starting to see that the growth opportunities are in communities and regions that know how to cluster. The question is, for the last 20 years or so, we've known what clustering works. The question is how? How do we do that? And we're cracking the nut on this, and this is what the core of our relationship with NJIT. But the SBA has recently looked at their investments in clusters and shown that those companies that participated in the cluster generated higher rates of revenue growth and employment growth. So again, what you're doing with a cluster is you're essentially delivering to the doorstep of financial institutions and potential investors higher growth prospects.
Going back to my previous statement, though, I do think that this is one area where the public sector can really help to lead the way to positively affect the private sector and the private market. Whether it's through tax incentives, whether it is through some way of really creating some kind of incentives to banks and to lending institutions, to philanthropic organizations, et cetera, that says these types of investments, there is some net benefit to you. I think the proof is in the pudding already that clusters work. The way that the financial models and financial institutions are set up, though, they don't necessarily get it yet. I think JPMorgan Chase may be a leader in this and helping some of their colleagues to get it. But where I see the public sector having a place where we can push that agenda is really through legislation and through incentives. The limited financial resources that the public dollar provides can I think push the market in a positive way. And finally, I just think also obviously on the nonprofit educational institution, philanthropic side, the more research and proof and analysis where we show over and over again, sooner or later I think the private sector and the banking and financial institutions will start to get it.
That's so refreshing, right? Because I think it's important that everyone has to get out of their comfort zone if we're going to move this model forward. The traditional role of government regulating industry and protecting the population, not that you will ever want to leave us unprotected, but the model in which it becomes actively engaged in helping businesses form and grow is really somewhat foreign here, and yet endemic. And all the countries that we're competing against are heavily invested in doing those things. And education, my own world, right? We're used to generating all those smarts, and it's somebody else's job to figure out what to do with it, and economic development is not a priority for most universities other than commercializing their own IP. It's wonderful to be in a place like this. I can say it freely now that Joe left, to have a president who doesn't just gets it, but heavily invests in it, who puts his time and effort into it, who puts the university budget into it, who gives us the freedom to make an NJII, to do things that don't work in the organizational business structure of a conventional university. These are the sorts of things that we all have to begin to do if we are going to be able to nudge the needle in a different direction and change the trajectory upon which much of American business has been for the last 25 or 30 years.
I had a question about working with high school students, especially in urban areas. I can elaborate, but I think you can take it from here, actually.
So who wants to pick up?
Yeah, well, here's a perfect example of how a medical cluster, this is not a new idea, but it's been around for quite some time. A medical cluster is really creating the pipeline, the pipeline of brain power. It's a medical lab, high school medical lab in Boston. Probably a more recent example, and I can get you the information on that, but a more recent example is looking at what the Rockford Aerospace Cluster has done to reach back into the high school to start generating the engineering talent they need to support their aerospace cluster. It goes all the way back into the high school. Why is that? Rockford is about an hour and a half away from Chicago. It's very tough to recruit engineers, yet Rockford has a very vibrant aerospace cluster. So the companies came together and designed this new career pathway that really reaches back into the high schools to help them start to see the career pathways that can lead to higher paying jobs. So clusters really enable us to start seeing in a whole way, in a whole system, the brain power. What we talk about is brain power that'll help feed and grow that cluster. If you don't have 21st century brain power, you're out of the game, period. You won't build a cluster. So it starts with brain power, but you have to convert that brain power into wealth with companies, and you have to have a quality connected place, a physical location like Newark has, that keeps companies and brain power here. Otherwise, they'll leave.
So, this is a direct and an indirect impact, right? There are things that we need to do throughout the K through 12 experience to better prepare the next generation of workers for these sorts of IT-intensive careers. And it's true almost anywhere you go in the country. The broader Smart City Initiative, which is really about infusing IT and the Internet of Things into all walks of urban life. Seth is here as a pioneer in helping us make that happen in Newark, is also breeding a career academy or a summer academy program, the mayor's initiative. I don't know if we have the formal name yet, but let's call them Baraka Summer Programming Academies. But it's about creating that workforce here in Newark, not waiting to import it from another country or another county. So that's direct, and indirect is that I know from my experience in talking to large companies that they have a difficult time attracting talent in the region if the K through 12 environment is not robust. If they think they're putting their workers' kids into inferior educational programs, they'll vote with their feet and find other places. And so these are important challenges that we have to tackle, and I'm pleased to see that Newark is getting its arms around it. I noticed, again, directly and indirectly, you recognize it and you're involved in it.
Let me give you one more example. Purdue Guitar Summer Camp started out with 20 people teaching high school kids manufacturing STEM skills by enabling them to manufacture an electric guitar over the summertime. That program that started out in 20 people with a Purdue College of Technology professor is now a national program funded by the National Science Foundation. The American Society for Engineering Education has also got a very focused set of initiatives to try to figure out how do we engage youth earlier. It's not going to be a simple, set it and forget it type of problem solution. We're going to have to come up with, as I said, many different initiatives and look for the ones that are sustainable and can grow.
So I'm looking at our host, and I think we've probably reached the end of our budgeted time, and even beyond. Mike? Yeah? Oops. Well, you now see what I was saying. The general prod suggests that the time has elapsed on our panel, and I want to thank all the panelists for such wonderful contributions and sharing their experience. And of course, thank our sponsor for making this day necessary, as Yogi Berra once said.
Hopefully people can stick around. I mean, I'm sure our panelists would love to entertain more questions after the fact, but let me just bring the formal session to a close and thank you all panelists for a remarkable discussion. I'd also like to express our gratitude to President Bloom and NJIT for hosting us today, and certainly for Deputy Mayor Adolfo Wilson for his remarks. I don't know about all of you. I also like to thank all of you for being here and paying attention. Thank you. I've had a chance to meet a few of you, and there's just a lot of awful, interesting people here. And, you know, I don't know about you all, but I've had my eyes opened and learned a lot about the impact that clustering can make. And I'd also like to give a shout out to my colleagues here from the JPMorgan Foundation. I think they've done a wonderful job in helping a very large global organization think about different ways it can make an impact across our communities globally. And I think this is a terrific initiative. So thank you, JPMorgan colleagues. And just in closing, I hope everyone leaves here as excited as I am. I think we've got a terrific opportunity in front of us, and I think the Deputy Mayor said it really well, that from his perspective, this community feels like they are at the doorstep, and we have every opportunity to go right through that door, because I can see and feel the partnership that's required to advance the ball. So terribly exciting. Thank you all for being here. Have a good day. Thanks.